welcome to another episode of Tzuzamen.
Hi, Tzili.
Tzipi.
And
hi, David Broza.
Hi, David Broza. And before we introduce him, I just want to make sure that he understands, and everybody, that we are here because we would like to widen our horizons, to think about other things except ourselves. Therefore, we invite people that can probably tick our brain. And today we have
David Broza,
who is
okay, I'll test you.
Oh,
I wonder what I am. I don't know. I mean,
we'll get to it. What happened to your identity?
a human being, Israeli, singer, musician, and activist.
Yes.
Very big activist. And I don't know, David, how much people know the level of your activism, especially in the Palestinian-Israeli issue. And as much as I want to talk about your music, I rather to start with this issue because, you know, we need to. What's going on?
And also don't forget, because lately, in the last whatever years, the Palestinian issue is not a conversation on the table in Israel. So there are very few people like you, like Tzili, who are really putting it on the table over and over again. So therefore, it's important for us to start with that, right, Tzili?
Yep. So do you want to tell us what do you do now? Now at the corona that you cannot go there to Israel, which is very unusual because usually you go every 2 minutes and you're stuck.
As you do too, yeah.
We all stuck.
Well, first of all, the pandemic has obviously put everything on hold, no matter who you are. For most people, especially creative people, it's tough. Especially performing artists like myself, where I've been, normally I would, for the past 40 years, averaged about, 200 shows a year. So I'm constantly on the road, spend at least, 10 days out of the month, if not more, in Israel on a regular basis every month, and then travel the rest of the world on the time that's left. So the pandemic has put me at home, which has given me a new experience, which I would have never prescribed for myself voluntarily, which is nice.
Don't be smart with me. We know that you have a fantastic wife.
Well, I was going to get there. You got
okay. Okay. I'm a spoiler.
Let me do the introduction until we get to the point, because otherwise it's just a matter of fact, and it's not.
Okay.
Neely, okay, we're already there now. Neely's not a matter of fact. Neely's been, of course, we've been married now for quite a few years, and even through all these years, we've never really had more than a few days together before I take off again on the road, because Neely, being the fashion designer, the fashion designer she is, Neely Lotan, she cannot travel so much. So she's here, and when I have a moment, then between shows, I will come here, spend a few days, hours, whatever it takes. And this has given us really the wonderful opportunity of quarantining ourselves, not on a desert island, but in, everybody's on his own island. Every man is an island, as the poem says. And so we've been really blessed with that fantastic moment where we could share these walls together. And I watch her as she has been really dealing with managing her business and keeping it afloat without letting go of any workers.
I can see on Facebook.
Yes, she's so busy. She does all her social media by herself, which is amazing. I mean, she posts everything, and this is a very huge business. Me, I sit all day and I have to practice my guitar. See, after all these years, with all over 40 years of career, if I don't practice my guitar on a daily basis, then it's whenever the skies open, the theater's open, the world resumes its old ways, I will not be able to continue and to resume my shows. So I have to constantly play 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours daily. And these are the hours that I play.
The guitar, I know it's pianist, violinist, cellist. I didn't think about, the guitar 4 or 5.
Well, depends what kind of playing.
4 hours, like Mozart.
No, I wouldn't compare myself. But the thing is that I challenge myself on the guitar. I'm not just a strummer.
Yes.
Even though most of my songs can be just strummed through and it'd be beautiful.
Right.
I guess people would love it just as much, but I love playing the guitar, so I put a lot into it. As a matter of fact, and we'll get back to my activities as an activist and whatever things that matter to me in a social level. But I've had to challenge myself over the years, and some of the challenges that I was up against. For example, my most recent work, which is an instrumental album dedicated only to my guitar playing, no singing whatsoever. For the first time, I'm performing just tunes that I've crafted on the guitar and recorded. I recorded it in Spain with one of the most important producers in the field of instrumental music, guitar music, by the name of Javier Limon, who produced artists that some of the viewers might be familiar with. Paco de Lucia. Paco de Lucia was the greatest guitarist that had
I even heard about him.
In the flamenco world, and for me, it was a god. So this was a challenge because I couldn't just go into the studio and record. I had to literally prepare over 4 months, 8 hours a day, just playing the pieces again and again and again. So,
but it's based on improvisation?
No, nothing is improvised. It's all written music. I mean, written in my head.
But I mean when I say about improvisation also that you have, let's say, a musical theme, and then you go into a different modulation, different scales, different, that I mean by.
That's more jazz. That's more like jazz. Mine is instrumental music, written and composed with detail. So this is why I had to practice, because I'm very much an improvisationalist when I perform. And I react to what's happening on stage. I react to what's happening with musicians. But here it's just me and the guitar. So the music I wrote it in my head because I don't notate.
That's interesting that you don't write notes.
No, and that took me a while to write because I'd never written anything without singing, and it was a very big, real challenge. And it was a new discipline. And then I had to play and practice so I could get technically good enough to play what I wrote, because sometimes I wrote things which were more challenging than my normal technique would allow me to play, and that took months. And took
so
months
it's a lot of it virtuosic, like a virtuosic playing, like a lot of technique and like allegro. I mean, all this fast music, or it's also quiet.
Let me tell you, probably Tzili knows that, because in the art you would also know it, that less is more.
Yes.
So technically it's not about playing fast. Technically it's about hitting the right notes at the right moment, having full control over your expression. In order to have full control of the expression, whether you're in martial arts, whether you're doing taekwondo, whether you're doing jiu-jitsu, whether you're doing boxing, whatever, you have to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat the moves time after time. So when you perform, it comes out of your heart. There's no thinking. So this is what I had to work on, I'm perfecting.
Tell me something. So, sometimes I ask like dancers, choreographers, whatever. Can audience read a story in a dance? Can they hear the story when you sing and you have words? There is always a story. Can they also, or you detect a story in an instrumental?
Absolutely.
Well,
absolutely. Exactly. The level, it's really up to the level of the piece, because if it's a good piece, it crosses and then it gets to the audience and then they hear the story. Absolutely.
And yet,
it's an emotional journey.
I was going to say Tzili would know, because Tzili is an appreciator of art more than anything. She's an artist at heart, and an artist as her expression and everything. But I know how she cares about art as her house is filled, and she's always going to the galleries and appreciates art since I've known her for God knows how many years. So she's the consumer of art. And let's say I, as an artist, as a performer of art, between me and Tzili, the conversation can be unspoken.
Yes, but it's not.
So wait. So no, I'll explain to you. And this is my first experience with performing an instrumental piece without really a whole album, without saying one word. So you would expect that the receiver can understand the story However, if we speak to each other and try to compare what was I talking about and what did he understand, there could be two different
It's
worlds,
two different
but
stories.
it's still a story.
Yes.
It's still
As
a story.
long as it crosses the line, you can develop your own story. It
Absolutely.
doesn't matter. As
And-
long as it serves your need of your story.
Right.
And if you got the other side story, it's even more
It's
beautiful,
fascinating.
but not necessarily. I remember that you sent me one piece while you're working on the
Oh, yeah.
album, and it's
Mhm.
beautiful. And
Yeah, thank you.
it's you know, it's like it's really how close it plays on your soul
Exactly.
and your existence.
So it does feel you the emotional, world and
Well, I don't know. So I don't know. I'm dealing with this world right now. And unfortunately, the album, well, happily, the album came out at the peak of the COVID, the first year of the COVID, in August 27th. Globally, it came out all over the world. Unfortunately, it came out at that time when I couldn't travel the world where I would normally go to promote the album and I'd perform it. So I still have no idea how I would sit on a stage and just play for you without saying a word, where I am actually a storyteller by nature,
yes.
a troubadour type of artist,
Right.
where I'm always conversing. So through poems, through lyrics, through stories in between songs. So this is something I will learn, but I can tell you one thing that's sitting every day as I was preparing for the album, the 8-9 hour days that I spent playing while preparing for the album. And since then, throughout this COVID year, playing 5 to 6 hours a day now to myself every day, it's excruciating. I suffer. I am not happy with it. I can totally understand why some musicians want to get high, when you want to, have a diversion through a drinking or whatever, because in your mind, you're not saying.
Don't you get to a frustration point that you cannot really get it out or cross it, and you play, but it stays within. So then it's like you're locked in.
Yeah, but what you discover about yourself, I'm sure there are some characteristics, new things about yourself because of this experience.
First of all, thank God he and Neely are good friends.
Yeah, but still he is with him. Also, he had to face himself.
Yeah.
I'm also lucky that Neely can withstand my playing scales for 5-6 hours straight, or play the same piece of music time after time.
With earplugs or without earplugs?
Well, I do something.
No, is Neely with earplugs or without?
No. She doesn't need to, because I put this here. It's a cloth.
Yeah.
I put it here. And so all she really hears is, she doesn't really hear the full sound.
Oh.
And that way it muffs up and brings down the level of sound, so it doesn't drive her crazy. But in preparation, the 2 years I worked in writing the music, although she works in her studio most of the time, but during this COVID year, I haven't asked her how much she suffered from it. But I think there is I don't know, maybe she developed some kind of her own filter in her own way, and embraces it. Yeah, what my issue is really the emotional impact that it has on me. But since I have not performed live in front of a live audience in such a long time, I can't even give you the answer what it's like. I might break the guitar.
The film is stuck. I made a feature film, right, which I wrote, produced. I was and then it stuck.
By the way, that next door to us, uptown, there are concerts. There are concerts in one of the buildings outside, near the over the weekend. I heard music and I went to see, and there's a concert. There was a pianist there, and people stood and listened.
In the cold?
It was in the cold, under the roof. It was beautiful. Maybe you should join, and maybe you should come and do yours.
Well, it would be hard to play. I don't know piano. I'd be hard to play the guitar in temperatures like we have now. I can do it for 1 minute, but probably
I know that people really appreciated it, and many people stood there, and they were so thankful to hear some live music.
The one of the beautiful things that happened, thanks to the COVID, is that New York has started dining outside, right? Everybody's in little shacks. And musicians during the warm months until end of
Yeah, they
November were
played
playing on
outside.
sidewalks.
Yeah.
And I'm doing a new project now, which I can't elaborate too much about, but I hired my musical director, a brilliant musician who I've followed for years and years and years. Was impossible to catch him in New York at any given time, except when he's passing between shows, like myself. But since the COVID, he's stuck here. I saw him playing on a sidewalk. I approached him. I said, it's the only time I get to approach this genius. He's an Israeli, massive artist. And I contracted him to do musical direction of my next project, which will be out as soon as the COVID will be lifted, all these curfews and these regulations. And so that's another thing that we've learned that people do. You listen to some of the greatest musicians who are stuck in New York City. That's their home, but they're never here normally because they're always on the road. And you suddenly get to hear the greatest music being played with a hat passing. You know, they pass the hat afterwards.
Right.
Not that that's what their income will be like, but it's a token of, okay, I played for you.
Yes.
Let's see if
Absolutely.
there's any.
Yeah. But listen,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know you like Tzili, although I am like, you know, what is voyeurism? I was, you know, looking at you and following you in my own way. So you had a fantastic journey of actually going through another path of the Israeli history in terms of music. Your lyrics expressed every time you took I would like to know on what you based your songs, on what the value kind of spread and what. So you actually became a part of the personal history of most Israelis, if you think about it.
Well, certain generations.
No, also the young ones.
Our generation.
Oh, stop talking about yourself. What do you mean generation? We are, come on, the young ones. No, there are many youngs that
Our
I know.
young generation.
No.
That goes with
Our
you
kids going
since your
with you.
20s. You know, we're
Like
going
how you call
through
it, the pipe for
stations.
Hamlin, right?
The Pied Piper.
Pipe Piper.
Well, listen, I mean, I've been very, very fortunate with my career. I had starting my career, I had no vision for myself as a musician. I was an artist. I was painting since a very young age, and I exhibited when I was 15. I thought that was my going to be my occupation. My career was going to be in visual arts.
Cool.
And then things changed, and that's another story. So I've been playing professionally for 43 years now, or 44 years, and those
don't mention years.
Very sensitive.
Spanning over 2 centuries, you know. It's even worse. And my as far as the lyrics go, I've always collaborated with writers. So my first and closest, still till today, collaborator, friend in you know, partner in crime, everything you want to call a partnership, is me and Jonathan Giffen.
He is fantastic.
Amazing. So his songs, his poems became my lyrics, and the joke was sometimes that
always he has a story. You are actually singing stories.
The funny thing is that after about 30 years of singing him, or 40 years, I turned to him one day. I said, you know, you fantasize something, you write a poem about it, I make a song out of it, and then it happens to me. It didn't even happen to you. You just fantasized. You know, I always thought, oh, this is funny. That stuff happens to me.
We just spoke with Edgar Carrot, and Edgar is Jonathan's son-in-law, and he spoke about the same thing. So
he really mentioned how he writes, and the way you described it very much, you know, remind us of what his approach. You know, why he writes, how he writes.
Edgar is also amazing, unique, and of course I know Shira, his wife, and Aviv. Her brother, I know them since they were 2. Like Shira must have been 3, and Aviv was 1-year-old. I used to babysit them.
Yeah. The collaboration is very interesting to me. The
collaboration is fabulous. And besides Jonathan, I've had, of course, Meir Ariel, may rest in peace, the most amazing writer and personality that lived. And then I had some poets that I worked with, like deceased, like Natan Alterman, or Yuda Michai. But then I moved to the United, regardless of what I did in Israel as my first 10 years of my career, And then I moved to the United States and started collaborating with American poets. And the point in that is that through poetry and my collaboration with poets, I'll get to know this country, because I would travel to wherever the poets are. So I went all the way to Nogales, which is on the Mexican border with Arizona. I would go all the way to San Francisco. I'd go also to the Midwest, to Evansville, Indiana, where I'd spend time. I would just travel and travel, always working with poets. And that's how I, over a period of 17 years, between 1984 and 2000, I was able to establish an incredible rapport with a lot of creative people in this country.
She was talking about that she came here. Maybe, I'm sorry to talk for yourself, but I was wondering, because she keeps saying how much it was difficult, correct me if I'm wrong, difficult for you because of the language, that, that how much can we communicate, let's say in English, never mind how many years you are here, but actually getting all the nuances, but you're collaborating.
I had
for that reason,
a little bit similar process through art, because when I came, in the beginning, when you come, you want to bring Israel with you, then you want to send Israel home, and then I took my time and I said, I'm not bringing anything anywhere. I need to find out my relation to this place and the color of this place, and then you give room to find something else. And I always had only Israeli artists, Israeli or Israeli Arab artists. And at one point I said, if I really want to come close to this place, I have to look at the local artist and try to find a connection. And it was a very interesting process, because I was arguing with myself if I should stay loyal only to Israel or not to Israel. And if it means loyalty, it doesn't mean anything. And after a while, I remember when I was pregnant and I took a course someplace, and I came across with an artist that really hit me at one way. And I said, okay, I can start, and it was like accepting the local thing and my relationship with the local culture, and to open up the conversation beyond our little spot, wherever it is. So I can totally understand the whole thing. But I wanted to ask you about different journey. When you start young and you have followers, at one point you change and you change and you change, and you really would like either to have the same followers or extend the followers. And they're not always accepting changes. They want you to stay wherever they want and to bring you to the songs that they like. Nostalgia. And you say, but I want to take you with me to another song or another experience. But they say, but no, we rather what we want. How do you converse with the audience this way?
Well, it's a question with an edge, because one can be dedicated to an audience or dedicated to your art. I'm dedicated to my art. I do not have any problem with my audience choosing some other artist while my music or my project does not appeal to them. Of course, my managers have a problem with that. The whole infrastructure around me have a problem.
You don't feel obligated to serve your audience. You just bring them to you.
I am obligated as my persona. My persona, I'm obligated to one thing, is the art that I do. If that art isn't true, if I don't have integrity in my art, as my playing goes, who cares if I play 6 hours a day? Is it important to you? Of course not. But if I sit in front of you in your living room or wherever it is, in the middle of a street, and I perform, if I cannot express my concept, my vision, 150, 200% better than what I already wanted, like to get better than myself, then I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy to perform. If I'm not worthy to perform, why would I even want to waste the audience's
that's a golden point of view. And that's really, I think,
it's very, and it's costly, and it's very, it's a lot of compromise.
But I think this costly way is basically the only way to not to teach audience, but to train audience to get used to new.
Let me ask you something. This is going to sound bold, but how long can you fake an orgasm?
Oh, did you see when Harry met Sally? Did you see
that was just for a split second.
The restaurants, no, it was quite no.
They edited it. It didn't last long. Let me tell you.
But that's a nice question. We'll have to think about it.
No,
Okay,
you cannot.
But I'm not talking
Art-
about faking, because I think that many artists do stay tuned to their people so they feel more comfortable and
not the
safe.
real ones.
But the real true artist, they lead the way.
Some do
That's
and
why
some
I said
don't.
this is the golden way.
Really, some do and some don't. I have no
Right?
criticism over those who
No,
fake
no,
it.
no, we don't judge.
And I don't have
We don't judge.
criticism over those who make it. And I'm talking about myself and only about myself. I cannot
Right.
complain
I
about me
agree.
being where I am and not being where I
Absolutely.
could have been.
And you know in your belly button
Right.
if you are cheating. You know what I mean? We
That's the
cannot,
whole- that's-
we cannot
that's the
lie
whole-
to ourselves. I mean, that's for sure.
Right.
Of course,
No
we
way.
always want a better version of what we are to, you know, and you have to work on that. You know, when I set out and came to the United States, I was the biggest selling artist in the history of Israel ever. Sold out every ticket months in advance, more records than anybody could have sold. I come to the United States, zero credibility, no name for myself, nothing. And I didn't even have pretensions. I didn't even think I'm going to have a career. I just wanted to explore. And that exploration had no manual book. Where do you start? So for me, and that's where it relates to what Tzili was talking about, always wanting to be the Israeli within, bringing Israel with you, taking it into Israel. I always remained in that mode, very much like Tzili. And I think what gave me an incredible opportunity to guide my career was something that I could have only been an Israeli doing this. And I'll tell you where in my art it relates to what Tzili was talking about. So in America, pop music is pop music. Even if you do Sinatra, crooning music, it's all written and catered as a singing, almost a speaking language. Okay, it's very contemporary. In Israel, when we take Yehuda Amichai, Natan Alterman, even Jonathan Geffen, who can be sometimes more lyrical than poetic, and Meir Ariel, who's definitely more poetic.
These are all Israeli poets.
Or if you go where I spent my teenage years between 12 and 18 in Spain, where I noticed that some of the greatest performers, greatest singers, Joan Manuel Serrat and Paco Ibáñez, great artists, were actually composing Federico Garcia Lorca, Rafael Alberti, Leon Felipe, Antonio Machado, Miguel Hernandez. These were my teachers. That gave me in music an indication as to what I listened for. So when I started writing my own music, I decided I will follow that path of writing music to poetry. When I came to America, nobody does this in America. It doesn't exist. So I had something very unique. However, when you combine poetry with pop, no record company will believe in it or wants to believe in it because it's way too intellectual. It can't be artistic. It can't be sellable. So there was no niche for it. There was no pigeonhole for it. And here everything works by criteria, by cataloging.
Right.
So I found a record company with a gentleman by the name of Bruce Lanville, who said, you know, poetry is not a four-letter word. And I'm going to put not only money and intent, I'm going to put a real energy behind you so that we can propel you to a point where everybody notices. And indeed, my first album, Away From Home, which was all based on American poets, all the way from Arizona, all the way to Indiana, all the way to San Francisco. These are poets that comprise not many poets in an album of 12 songs. You can't find that many, but it really set my tone as to, I can do it. I set a goal. And so I stayed true to my art, which was coming from Israel, writing music to poetry. It led me, believe it or not, on an intellectual path later on to teach creative writing in Bennington College for 10 years. I was an associate professor there, which I had no clue on what.
Professor now.
Huh?
I'm associate professor now.
Really? Fantastic. So
Yeah.
you know what? But I was in Bennington, which was creative writing, the mecca of the finest, poetry and dance, and it was amazing. And for 10 years, I associated myself with this, of course, with students of MFA courses, but mostly with these great poets, which made me feel so accomplished, or on my way to being accomplished. That's all I needed. It took many more years later. It took me 30 years to feel and regard myself as an accomplished artist in the art and in the craft of it. And this now I'm a free person. Now at the age of 65,
Don't
I'm
say your
refusing-
age, come on. Maybe I want to cast you for a movie for 40. Leave it.
You can't.
leave
You
it.
know, the first time they
Secret, some
cast me for a
secret.
movie, the first time they cast me for a movie, I was 33, and it was for a big, huge movie with TriStar Pictures. So the first day they liked, and I said, but I want you to use my music. And then they said, can we make you, then on the second audition in front of the director, they said, would you mind if we turn you into a 40-year-old? I said, hey, I don't mind. By the third time, they said, more like 50. I said, I'm only 33. We'll do it through makeup, but we need you because you have the Latino look, and you could be the New Yorkino, and because of my Spanish background. So, in the end, it got older and older, darker and darker, and in the end, they took Isaac Hayes.
Oh, yeah. But listen, so when you read the poem, okay, what poem you take, I mean, what is it in the poem that attracts you to pick it up and do the music and then carry it many times for years? So, and what happened to you every time that you sing it again? What do you, if you discover every time something?
In every song that I've ever written music to, and no matter how many times, you can take the most obvious one like Yeh Tov, my first song, or Mitachat HaShamayim, or Sigaliot, all these songs. Every time I sing it, the music erupts.
You can see from him when he performs. You can see that the dialogue
No,
goes on, that you are such a stubborn man. Every time I don't mean in the bad way, the good way. Every time you keep connecting.
How would you play? How would you play it on theater? How would you do Shakespeare? How would you play a classical piece time after time with your violin?
Some artists are more technical, you know.
You can't fake it, but you can't fake it.
But many actors, like if you are a stage actor, I mean, you can.
They have bag of tricks. Come on, there is a bag of tricks to every actor,
and they don't bring it in. Not everybody takes it in all the time.
Well, I think you can use. I think using the terminology "trick" is not the right word.
I agree with you.
I think there's a method, and there's no question.
I call it bag of tricks that they can fake crying.
Yeah,
not always they go deep into
not if you're one-man show. Not if you're doing a one-man show, you can't fake it. There's a method. I play sometimes 3 times a day, and I'll play the same songs. I cannot fake it. And I don't care what the situation is.
But David, this is a character because you take it personally, you're committed, you're living through this, you educate yourself and you educate others, and you feel it and you let everybody else feel it. So it's a question of character. But I want to go back to the film thing. Tzipi's last movie editor sent me an email 2 days ago. He's partnered with another guy, and the guy said to me, I want to interest you in some project, maybe we can collaborate. And then he shows me the concert, and of course you and Peter Yarrow are in it in Jerusalem. So I said, I know about these projects, and I know because I know David and Peter.
Oh, wow.
But it was so funny, like how, everything, one sits in San Francisco, Los Angeles, one sits in Israel, one sits here. I said, maybe we can collaborate, and I want to interest you with my project, and I come back to you. So tell us a little bit about your project in the West Bank.
Yeah, that's a good transition.
And,
Thank you, Tzili. She's always, like she knows how to somehow swim. Okay.
I don't like
We want to know this side of you. Not everybody knows.
Well, sure, it's true, because I could say probably for almost my entire life, I've always been guided by my parents and by my grandfather.
Wow.
To work on things which are more socially oriented. For example, my father helped find a club, a sports club for the handicapped, for those with cerebral palsy. Called in Spivak in Ramat Gan. So since the age of 7, I've always worked with the handicapped in Israel, and in that club. Always. There's 2,500 kids on wheelchairs, And now my parents both are deceased and the whole family is gone. But however, the club continues. And so me and my sister, Talia, who's 1 year younger, we're the fundraisers. We go around the world trying to help fundraise, and we do all kinds of activities to help the club continue surviving. It's fantastic. Then when I was a little older.
By the way, in the war, the Gaza war, 6 years ago, my boys volunteered there. I took them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
In Spivak.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So
that's an amazing club, an amazing entity. And my father, brought the swimming pool there, and we were the first ones to show handicapped how to swim, and it was amazing. And till today, every year we have big fundraiser in the wintertime. Now, when I was about 19, my grandfather had this great idea. I mean, he'd been working on it for several years before. He had this great idea that there should be a school for peace somewhere in the world. And obviously we're living in Israel. And so his whole philosophy was based around the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which is the perfect grounds to creating a school for peace, because there's schools, there are military academies, there's all kinds of things. And so he started working on that, and I would drag along with him. I was in the army, but I had a lot of spare time, and I would drag along with him to these meetings that he would meet these young people who are all dreamers like him, but he's close to 80 years old already. Anyhow, by the time he was 80, he found a piece of land, and along with other young people, established a beautiful community called Neve Shalom.
Wow, what do you mean? It's like
Oasis of Peace. And that's his place. The place until then was really held by a monk by the name of Father Bruno, who was a Dominican monk, and it was a hermitage. People who wanted to be in isolation for a day or two would come in them and be in somewhat of silence. And it's not far from the monastery of the silenced monks, Minzar HaShatkanim. So I started, I would go, and I think it just seeped in me, and I kind of took in a lot of that philosophy of his.
I envy you. You know that we grew up in Square Dizengoff, and my mother, which was a fantastic woman.
Square Dizengoff, Kikar Dizengoff.
Yes, she was a fantastic woman.
Both of us.
But she could only give me money to open doors. But I had nothing like this. I envy you.
I'm lucky.
You have roots. I have the roots of the Holocaust.
You have the roots of cosmetics.
Cosmetics and Holocaust. No, but come on,
so from my grandmother's point, the wife of my grandfather, they established, along with other families in 1882, Rehovot. And then the first kibbutz, Dgania.
I keep coming to myself. I was born there.
You really?
Because we were in Kutzat Schiller for a few months, my parents, and I was born.
Wow.
You see?
So
I'm connecting to your history. Okay.
So they're really falcha. They're really people from the land. And they still today, they're all farmers, or many of them are farmers, and own a lot of lands around. And my cousin has one of the finest wineries. It's called Red Poetry, beautiful wine. And they're big art collectors. As a matter of fact, Tzili, I have to introduce you. You should meet them. Dovital. I mean, they have Hilela, his mother, Tal, had, I think, the largest Israeli collection of contemporary art from 1950 until today.
Israeli art?
Only Israeli art. And it was exhibited in the museum in Beersheba. But these people are real art. They're farmers, but with an intellectual passion for art in a way, on a level that is very, very fine and unique. But anyway, back to the way I paved my world of activity as an activist. Now, in 1977, when I wrote my first song, Yeh Tov, with Jonathan Geffen.
It will be good. It will be good.
Things will be better, yeah.
Yeah.
It was written basically on the night when President Anwar Sadat of Egypt arrived in Israel for the first time. So Jonathan gave me, because I was performing alongside Jonathan as a sideman on his amazing show, which was not only poetry, it was commentary, it was funny. It was, he was like Eleni Bruce of Israel. And
he's a great satirican. Yeah.
By the way, he now wrote something amazing about his aunt. His aunt, Ruth Dayan.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Ruth. Yes. I knew Ruth personally. She was a close friend of my grandparents.
He
my
wrote a
parents.
fantastic tribute.
Right. So Wood Sof, yeah. So anyhow,
Look at him.
so
He connects all the
song.
time, and I disturb him.
No,
Amazing.
you're not disturbed. It's good. I'm glad you weren't talking.
No, it's all the time, and you connect.
Yeah. So
Okay.
with Yetov being my first song that I ever wrote and recorded, and it was being played on the radio so much, and upon the arrival of Sadat, there was a group of activists that formed a movement called Peace Now. Shalom Achshav.
We were all
And they were doing a lot of manifestations and activities in towns all the way from Yerucham, Netivot, all the way up to Shlomi, to the Galilee and everything. And they needed somebody to come and play a song. So I had that song. So they called me in. It was Yossi Sarid, Sali Reshef, Tzaban, Yair Tzaban, a group, small group, and me. And so I started going from place to place.
Now they call them traitors.
No, they're not traitors.
Now they call them traitors. Come on. Go on.
That's okay. Some can call them traitors, others call them heroes. There's always the middle where everything is okay. So they brought all the thousands and thousands of people. We managed to really draw great audiences until we came to Kikar Malchei Israel, which is now Rabin Square, Kikar Rabin, and brought thousands of people in support of Menachem Begin and the peace process. Why I'm mentioning this is because this was my stepping stone. This was a milestone in my career. And from that moment on, I felt that I'd met, not only being on the art side, writing music alongside with Yonatan Geffen and all those, and getting albums out, that was one great purpose for life. And then there was the activist in me that wanted to be a vibrant, valid member of the society I'm living in, of my people, of my country. If you want to bring a change, you got to do something about it.
Right.
So my only thing I could do was sing those songs and get those songs out during those manifestations. And then, of course, I had my shows. Over the years, this went on, and I managed to find all kinds of connectivities to movements. But when I met in 1999, became my big, let's say, not opportunity, but a
turning point.
A turning point where I was introduced to this band, this Palestinian band called Sabrin. And Sabrin were the most prominent Palestinian band till today, who actually wrote original music into the Palestinian cultural pop, or not pop, more popular genres of music. Because until then, basically songs were passed on from father to son. And they were based in East Jerusalem. They're from East Jerusalem. So Said Murad and Issa Frej, who are the founders of the band, are from the old city. As a matter of fact, Said was born in station number 3 on the Via Dolorosa. His father had a little bread bakery that Pitot, was to make on station number 3. And Issa comes from a very prominent Christian family that are actually the ones who are in charge of ringing the bells in the whole sepulchre. These are old families that have been in the old city 500 years, 400 years, I don't know, no, probably, from the Ottoman Empire days. And so I came to know Said and Issa Frej and their associates and friends through this meeting that was organized in 1999, and we remained friends, and until today, through that friendship, we developed a rapport, a point of relaxation with each other, a point of trust, a point that would enable us to create together music and to create a vibe that can infect a lot of people around us.
Listen to yourself talking about commodity and feel safe together and, tranquility. And you speak about being with Arabs.
What's wrong with Arabs?
What's wrong with that? Look what's happening. How many people even...
But this is a very special place. And it's a gathering place.
But this is a secret for everything.
For people
I've made records
us.
there. I've made records. I've made
This
my
is a
first
secret.
documentary.
Like us.
My first documentary. I made my first documentary there, which is called East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, just to show how music can be a bridge builder and to allow for people to bring to get their minds reprogrammed,
Right.
so as not to feel the fear, because really most of the animosity that Israelis feel towards Arabs and vice versa, Palestinians feel towards Israelis just the same, if not worse, then it's because because of the way we're conditioned. So, that's what my grandfather's, to me, that what I took from my grandfather was, you have to recondition people. Reconditioning is through education.
And Saeed Murad's son Fadi is a graduated of the High School of East Jerusalem, and he participated in a simulation that we did, and he's collaborating with me. We do some political projects together today. So with other youngsters.
But you're right. It's very difficult. It's not easy to sell, but again, it's part of this is me. And so I don't have a problem if you feel exactly opposite than me, and you're full of fear, and you're a settler, and you think that living in the West Bank gives you a license to protect yourself against Palestinians. I think there's ways of overcoming that and building a mutual relationship.
This is not in the media. We just saw this show.
I'm not talking about media.
No, what happened in the West Bank with those settlers who came and found a nice family picnic, and then they just kicked them out.
But I don't use the media to promote my ideas.
Not you.
I work my ideas. I walk the walk and I talk the talk. Tzili knows this by now. So, for example, it's a very fragile reality. For example, this studio that we're in is not owned by the band. The band never bought the studio, so we might lose it because if they can't pay the rent, then we can't have a place to meet. Now, what do we have now? I have a place where I can call my Israeli musicians, fearlessly coming to enjoy an evening of music and food. I can call friends from up in the north, Israeli-Palestinians, or just Israelis, Jewish Israelis, who have never associated themselves with Palestinians, and come and hang out. You can do it for 1 day, for 2 days, for 3 days. We can just be together. And so my actual mission on the side today, which it's quite an acute mission because time is running out. And with the previous administration, with the Trump administration, all funding for any collaborations between Israelis and Palestinians were annulled. And
now maybe it will be better.
Terminated. Hope maybe something will, but it's not even that. I think the attitude will bring the change faster than the government.
Any of your children, Henry, any of your children is following your vision?
Well, yeah. I mean, I have 3 kids on my own.
I know.
It's funny you say that. My oldest, Moran, is a big activist, but today she's really much more concerned with global issues, the global climate, with the Amazon. She's very, very active. Her name is Moran Sol. She goes as a Broza, and originally she was a singer. All my kids sang with me as they were growing up. They had to sing with me if they wanted to travel with me. Then Moran became a chef, level of a Michelin chef. She's a cordon bleu with a Michelin background with Gordon Ramsay and other chefs, and lives in Israel. And now she's actually spending most of her time on these climate issues. So she's active on that. My youngest, I have 3 kids. So Moran is the oldest. Ramon is the middle. He's less active. And Adam, my youngest, is so active. I mean, he's made it a point to become a lawyer in humanitarian law. So he helps, not in the Middle East so much now. He helps in Africa and all sorts of places where there's a lot of atrocities and crimes against humanity, that he helps protect and defend these sort of victims of that. It's a natural thing.
You must be very proud. We say nachat. You must be
nachat. I'm proud of my kids no matter what. Nachat is that they have a soul that can lead them with their intelligence into places that I was taught to be in, and perhaps I showed them some of the way. They'll make their own, like Tzili's making her own, and her kids will learn from that. You know?
So you didn't. So you didn't plant them the fear.
No fear.
Fear has no place there. Just listen to him. There's no place for fear.
No place for fear. But you have to learn how to build a relationship. Right. It's not about coming and bringing things. It's about being there.
It's a process. It's a process.
I've been in Sabrin in the East Jerusalem studio. I've done 2 albums there. I've filmed 2 films, put out 1 already. But I've been there since 1999. That's 22 years. But 22 years of being, now that I've been away for this duration of this time of the COVID, it just means we talk on the phone every day, and we go over who do we turn to what organizations, what nations are there from the EU and different places, what private people can we, and try to bring them in so that we can actually save that little island that we built in East Jerusalem, where everybody knows that they can come to and take off their shields and just pretend, not even pretend, just enjoy the ride of being together, of laughing and playing music and eating.
The heartbeat is on all the time. And they make sure that the heartbeat won't stop.
But look at the guitar. I understand it did something crazy about guitars. A Michiganer idea, but in a good way. Come on,
the kids project.
A lot of good people. They're Michiganer in their energy.
In a good way.
In a good way.
You're right.
Can you talk about it a little?
Yeah, of course.
This guitar thing, unbelievable.
So it's so during my work in East Jerusalem, I got acquainted with the life of the refugee camp, Sharfat, which is the only refugee camp within Israeli borders, and it's in East Jerusalem. And one of the young people who was in my album, in East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem album, his name was Muhammad Mughrabi, was a very talented rapper. And I knew him since he was 16 or so. Now he's got to be 30 something. And one night he asked me if I'd like to visit the camp. It was midnight. So I said, really, can I? Because I know it's a no man's land. It's no place for Israelis to look for anything during the daytime. So he took me to his house, and then on the way to the house, we stopped in a Turkish bath, and we met some of his buddies and all that. And it's very, you can imagine, spooky kind of environment.
Man bones.
It was bizarre. But from there came an invitation from the camp. Would I consider coming and meeting some of the kids of the camp? Now you understand the camp can hold on a good day between 5,000 and 10,000, 8,000, I think 8,000 people at the most, but it has more than 80,000 living. So it's the pressure, the energy, the issues, human issues are horrendous when you have space. Imagine when you don't have space, it's like ready to explode. So I got invited and I took on the invitation, and this was happening during January. I said, as soon as it warms up, let's do it. So around April, I called and they said, yeah, we'll set up a meeting with you and the kids.
So how was your first meeting?
No, so I met with all of them. I kept on going for 3 years, 4 years.
The first one, what happened to you? The first encounter with those
Well, the first was that's on the film. The first is amazing. These kids all dressed up for me in national clothes, and they performed for me, and they sang for me, and they danced. And then I gave them a workshop, and they didn't speak any Hebrew. They didn't speak hardly no English. So I had Muhammad translate all the time because he understands Hebrew. And we started a relationship, which really was the grounds for me starting a regular, every couple of weeks, every 2 weeks, I'd come and I'd give them a workshop, and we'd collect these kids, boys and girls. Later on, I divided them into just boys and just girls, and I met with what's called the heads of the hamulot, of the tribes within, the families within. There's 11 big families, and I sat with all the heads to introduce myself and to explain what I'm doing, because I knew that there could be a problem, and then I could be in harm's way, I could be targeted. I was given the blessing, and for the next 3 or 4 years, we continued working. Now, this was on the film, and so there's a moment where you see in the film East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, which you can find now on Amazon. It was on Netflix for 3 years, but now it's on Amazon and other platforms. There's a moment there where I'm with the kids from 5 to 15-year-olds, and some guy here in New York City saw the film and saw me on the street one day and called me out. You should be giving guitars away to the kids. And I'm looking at, what are you talking about? I saw your film. You should give them guitars. I'm thinking, okay, I want to give him violins and cellos. I want to teach him music. Give him guitars. I thought the idea was great. I took him in, said, let's go have coffee. I don't like being called out on the street. Let's see if you can stand behind your suggestion. And he partnered with me, and we started a foundation called 1 Million Guitars. And the idea is, I designed a guitar.
It started big head, big top.
I designed a beautiful guitar, which looks very much like mine, and raised money. I went to, Paramount and Viacom, big companies, got quite a lot of money. And I constructed this guitar. I manufactured it in China. It's a replica of my guitar. It costs $100, not $20,000, but it's a $100 guitar, which is durable. It doesn't break easy. It's made especially for an 8-year-old hand, because my idea is that we should give it away to 8 and 9-year-olds, 4th and 5th graders. And right now we are spread between 3,300 schools in America.
Wow.
And and in Israel, with this beautiful school called Polyphony, which is based in Nazareth, I train teachers and we manage the courses during the regular curriculum in schools in Israel, Jewish and Arab schools around the country. And of course, the COVID has stopped us from progressing as we were doing, but we're getting into a lot of schools, and these kids they get to hold the guitar for 2 years, for 4th and 5th grade. If they stick with it, okay, they get to keep the guitar for life.
Unbelievable.
So that's the mission. And that's the beauty of the beautiful 1 Million Guitar project, which is spreading. I get calls.
Well, I'm happy we're doing this just because to bring to people this. Maybe you'll inspire other people to get off
That's
their
the whole
ass.
idea.
Get off their ass and.
So let's leave you on this note, because Tzipi has another Zoom with the university.
Okay.
And we'll talk more another time,
Listen,
David.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
No, it's really very inspiring. You must know. So, and tell your children that you made me proud of them too for the same money. So wait, we have to say hello.
Goodbye.
Wait, thank
See you
you, and
next
thank you
week.
for everybody who came, and
Yes.
see you next week. And after every program, we go and eat something. Nash.
Go eat.
She made a soup.
You made a soup? I'm going to
Yeah.
make a soup now.
Okay.
It's good.
You made and I will make.
All right.
Okay,
Thanks,
David.
David.
Thank
Bye.
you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.